live to a news conference with Vancouver's mayor and police chief, as well as a Vancouver police inspector. They're set to unveil what they call a long-term initiative targeting organized crime and public safety concerns in the city. Our municipal affairs reporter Chad Pawson is at City Hall and joins us now. He'll be watching this news conference with us. Chad, do we know any more details before this begins?
Yeah, not a lot to say at this point, Dan, other than what's going to be announced here today, a sort of long-term initiative to crack down on gang activity in the city. That this has been telegraphed. This was part of Mayor Ken Sim's announcement the third week in January, where he announced the big headline was that he didn't want Vancouver to build any more new net supportive housing until the downtown east side could be revitalized for a mix of businesses, a deconcentration of services. Now, in and amongst that idea, which is still yet to come to council to be debated, how this would actually work, was an announcement that there would be a crackdown on gang activity, that in collaboration with police, they wanted to take steps to try and decrease criminal elements within the downtown east side. So we believe that this announcement today is going to be part of that, some kind of initiative amongst the city and, of course, its police force to help within the downtown east side to look at gang activity, to look at drug trade and trafficking and public safety, something, of course, the ABC Vancouver party, Ken Sim's party, campaigned on 2.5 years ago for its mandate to say, you know, we want to improve public safety in the city. So we believe it's going to be the sort of first part of this motion from Ken Sim, which is expected at the end of the month to be debated at City Hall. I'll say so far, a lot of people gathering here in the media room just off to my left, a lot of members of the Vancouver Police Department. Of course, Chief Constable Adam Palmer is expected to speak. So is Inspector Gary Heyer. Now, Gary Heyer is the force's youth and mental wellness officer, so could be maybe a component of this with schools or younger people with initiatives. So we're expecting to hear more from them, but also, you know, the communication officers from the VPD are here, as well as other rank and file members. So looking like a lot of support from VPD here at City Hall for this announcement.
And Chad, I know that we remember in 2022, and you alluded to it, Ken Sim campaigned on reducing crime, pledged to hire 100 new police officers and 100 mental health workers, a lot of that costing quite a bit more money. Remind us, do we know what the status is on the hiring of those new officers at least?
Yeah, they haven't quite got to the 100, of course, but definitely some things to be said for what Mayor Ken Sim has worked toward, and that is an Indigenous response crisis unit. That's something they've put in place as part of policing efforts in the city. A community policing center for Gastown, Yaletown area, to help with crime in those areas. So, you know, in the past few weeks, Ken Sim has been touting the work that his council has been doing. They haven't quite got to the 100 police officers yet, as well as the mental health nurses that were promised, but these are long-term goals over the term, something that was a major priority for Ken Sim, and that this is all part of it, that you know, extra resources are being put in place. Ken Sim touting.
I'm going to interrupt you. My apologies.
You know,
Mayor Ken Sim is speaking now. Let's go to Ken Sim speaking at Vancouver City Hall, along with senior members of Vancouver Police, with
good afternoon,
councillors
everyone.
behind.
Welcome. Before we do get started, I do want to acknowledge that we're hosting today's press conference on the unceded territories of the Musqueam, the Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. And I do want to thank them for their generosity and their hospitality and the love and care they show this land that we get to live, work, and play on. And I do think it's incumbent upon us to unlearn what we've learned in the past and learn the true history as to what's happened on these lands. If we do that, you know what, we're going to build an incredibly bright future for all of us. I also want to acknowledge our teammates up on this stage here and everyone that works at the City of Vancouver. We're going to be talking about some stuff today, and it's definitely a group effort well beyond just a mayor. These are my teammates. And there is one person I do want to highlight in particular, Luhan Yao. She actually works in the mayor's office. She's been with us for over a year and a half. She's a researcher. Fortunately, unfortunately, she's actually leaving us, and she is pursuing a career in Ottawa. And we are incredibly proud of her, and it's been just a delight to work side by side with Luhan. So I don't know if Luhan's here, but we absolutely love you, and we're really proud of you. Okay. From day one, our mission has been clear: to do things differently. And we were elected to try different approaches, change the status quo, and make Vancouver a safer, more vibrant, and more livable city for everyone, including the city's most vulnerable residents. Public safety is at the heart of any vibrant and successful city. It's not just about responding to emergencies. It's about building a city where people can walk the streets safely without fear, businesses can thrive, and communities can succeed. And that's why we've made safety our top priority. But here's the reality. Achieving it doesn't happen by chance. It requires decisive action, putting egos aside, and a lot of strategic investment. And that's exactly what we're delivering on. We've hired 200 new police officers and 35 new mental health workers. We've secured millions of dollars for youth violence prevention, and we continue to fully fund the Vancouver Police Department and the Vancouver Fire and Rescue Services, something that has not been done by past administrations. And I want to give you some perspective here. For the first time in 15 years, we have a fully funded Vancouver Police Department, and for the first time in 8 years, we have a fully funded Vancouver Fire and Rescue Service. And so we are seeing the impact of these investments. Violent crime and property crime are down across the board. That's real progress. But let's also be clear. This isn't always the public's feeling, especially in the downtown east side. For years, hundreds of millions of dollars have been poured into the downtown east side, a small 4 square kilometer area, without delivering meaningful, lasting change. And as the people who live and work there know as well, the status quo is a broken system. And that's why we're taking a different approach. First, we're addressing the hyper-concentration of services and supportive housing in the downtown east side. The current situation has not only blocked local businesses from thriving, but has created conditions that degrade the health and well-being of our most vulnerable community members, while also attracting predatory criminals. We need to create a better balance of mixed income housing options, businesses, and services so people can live, work, and accept support without being trapped in a cycle of poverty and crime. Secondly, I'm bringing forward a motion at the end of the month to pause net new supportive housing across Vancouver. Our city represents 25% of the region's population, yet we have over 77% of the region's supportive housing units, 67% of the region's shelter spaces, and 50% of the region's social housing. It's an unsustainable situation. And too many of our existing supportive housing SROs are in shocking condition. Broken elevators, garbage everywhere, open drug use, infestations, and unsanitary living conditions. How can we expect people to rebuild their lives in buildings that are literally falling apart all around them? We need other communities to step up while we focus on renewing our aging housing stock and replacing temporary modular housing with permanent solutions. By focusing on renewal and revitalization, we're going to ensure that the people who live here get the support they deserve in a place that's built to help them succeed. Right now, the City of Vancouver spends around $50 million a year on a small 4 square kilometer area, and that doesn't even include the policing costs. We're also covering $6.5 million a year for mental health workers, which, the last time I checked, was not a municipal responsibility. And we're doing this not because we can, but because it's necessary. Let's be real. This comes at a huge cost to Vancouver taxpayers. And Vancouver taxpayers, Vancouverites are generous, they're compassionate, but we're at a breaking point. And we can't keep pouring money into a system that isn't delivering real results and keeps our most vulnerable individuals stuck in a cycle of poverty, addiction, and crime. And that's why today we're taking another major step, cracking down on organized crime and predatory criminals who prey on our city's most vulnerable residents. We all see what's happening on our streets: repeat offenders, organized shoplifting rings, drug traffickers taking advantage of people struggling with addiction, criminals who profit off of human suffering, while our most vulnerable pay the price. These types of people are all the same. They're predators. The reality is this: people experiencing homelessness and deep poverty are 19 times more likely, that's right, 19 times more likely to be victims of crime. And those with mental health and substance use disorders, 23 times more likely. This isn't just about public safety. This is a humanitarian crisis. And the situation in the downtown east side has reached a tipping point. Today, we take the first step towards ending this cycle of violence. After weeks of work by our team and the Vancouver Police Department and building on existing police actions around organized crime, the City of Vancouver will be resourcing Task Force Barrage, a large concentrated effort by the Vancouver Police Department to dismantle organized crime operations in the downtown east side and by effect the entire city. This will not and cannot be a short-term operation. This will be a long-term, sustained effort to disrupt criminal networks, hold offenders accountable, and make our streets safer. This includes expanding our integrated response teams, bringing together police, fire, bylaw officers, sanitation crews, and city engineering teams to clear sidewalks, provide community safety for residents, workers, and visitors. Furthermore, Task Force Barrage will also continue the funding of Project Bright Haven in Gastown, as unfortunately provincial funding has dried up for that operation. There will be a whole host of other actions under Project Barrage that I'll let Chief Palmer and Inspector Gary Hare, the project commander, speak to. So I want to be absolutely clear. Policing alone isn't the answer, nor is there any one silver bullet. We know that a safer city also requires partnerships with senior levels of government and investments in mental health, addiction and recovery support, and dignified housing. That's why we continue to push for real solutions like mandatory compassionate care for those experiencing significant substance use disorder or mental health crises. We're also working on stronger partnerships between law enforcement and mental health workers. And we will continue to demand that others step up. Make no mistake about it, this is about protecting everyone. Families, small business owners, workers, and the city's most vulnerable residents who call the downtown east side home. We're committed to creating a Vancouver where everyone has the safe environment they need, not just to survive, but to thrive. And we know this will not happen overnight. It's going to take commitment, collaboration, and courage. But let me be clear, this is a fight worth fighting, and we're all in. And so with that, I'm now going to pass the podium over to Chief Palmer.
Thank you, Mayor Sim. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here on behalf of the Vancouver Police Department. I do want to thank the Mayor and the councillors for being here. Thank you so much, and for your ongoing support of public safety in our city and of the Vancouver Police Department. I want to recognize Deputy Chief Howard Chow, who is here, who commands our Operations Division, and also Inspector Gary Hare, who is the new District 2 Commander and will be overseeing Task Force Barrage. If you travel the country and ask people about the downtown east side, most will say that they've heard of it before. Unfortunately, to many people across Canada and sometimes beyond that, these few square blocks are known to be very troubled for its open drug, use, social challenges, and the associated property crime and violence. This area, which is a historical heart of the city of Vancouver when we look back on its history, is now synonymous with drug overdose, fentanyl, death, mental health challenges, crime, and desperation. It's a place where predatory drug traffickers, people who sometimes don't even use drugs themselves or even live in the neighborhood, come to make money off the misery and addiction of local residents. And it's a place where if you live there, you're 1/3 more likely to struggle with depression, 7 times more likely to live with schizophrenia or another psychological diagnosis, and people are at an exponentially higher risk to be the victim of violent crime. I'm going to give you some data and some stats at the end to give you more context. Nobody in the city that's a great city like Vancouver should have to live like this, which is why today we're announcing Task Force Barrage, targeting violence, organized crime, and criminal activity in the downtown east side. This coordinated approach will be a sustained effort over time that includes 3 core strategies. Number 1 will be additional high visibility officers to reduce street crime and violence. 2 will be additional complex and coordinated investigations to target gangs and organized crime groups in this area. And 3, improve community partnerships to address social needs and improve community safety. Starting today, you will see more uniformed officers patrolling on foot in the downtown east side. These officers will provide increased uniform presence on the street and in the laneways to complement the work that we're already doing to combat crime, violence, disorder, and keeping the community safe. Their primary function will be to target chronic offenders, to arrest people with outstanding warrants and people breaching their bail conditions, to drive out drug traffickers linked to street violence and organized crime who prey on the most vulnerable members of our community. They will also deter crime by maintaining a highly visible presence in the neighborhood and will respond immediately to protect victims and apprehend offenders when crimes occur. In a moment, I'll introduce Inspector Hare, who will lead this task force. Inspector Hare is, as I mentioned, is the new commanding officer in charge of District 2, which includes the downtown east side, and he brings 2 decades of operational and investigative public safety experience to this important leadership position, and he's also a provincially accredited team commander. Secondly, we'll be launching more coordinated and complex investigations to target violent offenders and organized crime groups in the downtown east side. We are enhancing our focus on criminal organizations and individual drug dealers who manufacture, produce, and traffic in harmful drugs, as well as violent offenders who often bring weapons into the neighborhood. While this has always been a top priority of our organized crime section, and I want to recognize he's not here today, but Inspector Phil Hurd, who's done a great job leading our organized crime section, decriminalization policies limited our ability to conduct drug investigations in the downtown east side. The reversal of those policies has created new avenues of investigation that we intend to utilize fully. As part of Task Force Barrage, our organized crime section will work closely with frontline officers in the downtown east side to identify and arrest predatory drug traffickers and to disrupt organized crime in the area. This is complex work that often takes months to result in convictions. However, I expect the impact of this work will be felt quickly as we begin to make arrests, seize more illicit drugs, and put sustained pressure on organized criminals in this area. The third prong that I mentioned of Task Force Barrage involves community partnerships. We are committed to working collaboratively, as we've done for many years, throughout the entire community to foster positive relationships and address deeply rooted issues and make living in the downtown east side, which often feels unsafe, make it feel more safe. It was great today. I saw on Global News, BC One, in the noon news hour, that you were talking with the Hastings BIA coordinator, and they were talking about their desire to see higher level targeting of high-level criminals in that neighborhood, and that's one group that we're working with, and we intend to do exactly that. Many of these things are not traditional policing responsibilities when it comes to the social side of it. However, a lack of leadership and coordination historically has resulted in some of these tasks being passed down onto police. And I think people sometimes over time have thought that you can arrest your way out of this, and we surely can't. So working with other groups is going to be key to this. Under Task Force Barrage, we're going to work closely with our healthcare providers and community groups. I want to give a shout out to Vancouver Coastal Health, who are amazing partners over the past several decades. We're going to be enhancing partnerships with staff and supportive housing operators to address crime that happens indoors so that people can feel safe in their own homes. And we're going to work with residents and community groups to combat neighborhood-specific issues, including violent retail thefts, which is another significant issue in that neighborhood, fueled by the downtown east side's illicit stolen property market. It's key and very important to note, which to me is almost a fourth pillar, but it is separate but interrelated, and these two projects are working in lockstep, that we've worked successfully over the past few months with the City of Vancouver to deploy integrated response teams. These are city-led teams, which include bylaw officers, city engineering, fire department, police officers, and sanitation crews to address illegal activity, encampments, structures, garbage, street flushing, things like that, and the general cleanliness of the neighborhood. And I just want to thank Paul Mulcree, the city manager, Sandra Singh, the deputy city manager, the fire chief, Karen Fry, and our city engineer, Lon Leclerc, for their great work in integrating with police to make these approaches successful. It's a very important part of the overall strategy as various City of Vancouver departments, including police, have taken a combined and coordinated approach to tackling these issues. And I will say this has not always been the case. I've been around a long time, and I will say that things ebb and flow with different levels of coordination and cooperation between the city and the police department, and we're probably the best I've ever seen it. And again, I just want to thank Mayor and Council for your support and your focus on public safety, because we feel it at the police department, and we feel that working in a coordinated fashion, tackling these issues is much better than some of the situations we've seen in the past. We're also going to work with other levels of government, as we always do. With Crown Council, we've had discussions with them and other partners to advance solutions like treatment on demand for drug users, which we have been calling for years. And as the mayor mentioned earlier, mandatory or involuntary care for violent people with severe mental health disorders who are chronically a danger to themselves or others, and it's not compassionate or safe to them or members of our community for them to be out wandering our streets. And we want to ensure that the more violent and repeat offenders are charged and held in custody when warranted and not granted bail when they're committing more serious crimes. Predictably, as the media, I know that you will talk to various critics who I expect will follow sort of the standard playbook and will try to paint these efforts in a negative light, and that's to be expected. They will try to tell you that this initiative is not going to make life, that it is going to make life more difficult for people who are already struggling. But I want to make one thing clear, and I'm going to talk about victimization again in a minute, but we're not here to target everyday residents of the downtown east side community. And we're not here to target people that happen to be struggling with addiction issues, and especially those who are living with complex mental health issues. That's not our goal. We'll always have empathy and compassion for people whose life circumstances have brought them here. And by and large, I know that we have a lot of support from people to make the downtown east side a safer place. Our priority is, and always will be, to focus on violent criminals, drug traffickers who commit crime and victimize other people in the community. I'll just note that we are also very alive to potential displacement. We've done many projects in the past, and some of the shoulder neighborhoods like Chinatown, Gastown, Strathcona, we're going to be doing real-time intelligence and analysis and making sure that we're addressing those issues so that other neighborhoods, if they are impacted, we're going to get on it right away and ensure the safety of those neighborhoods. So just to head off, I think, some possible questions that may come, and to give you some data that may help give some context to people that are watching this and also to the media. First thing I want to say is that crime is down in Vancouver, and the mayor mentioned that. And I know there's always the divide between crime stats and perception of safety. And we know that there's a perception of crime that's out there, that people are not feeling safe in certain areas. But as far as crime stats go, the numbers are clearly down and heading in the right direction. Violent crime for the year-end stats are down 6.8%. Property crime is down 9.2%. And total crime is down 7%. Victimization, as I mentioned, and the mayor touched on it, we are very alive to victimization, and we're not out to go after marginalized people on the downtown east side because we have very good data on this, and we're very alive to the issue that you are 19 times more likely to be the victim of crime in Vancouver if you were homeless. You're 15 times more likely to be the victim of any crime if you're suffering from a mental health issue, and 23 times more likely to be the victim of violent crime if you're suffering from a mental health issue. But this is a neighborhood where we're talking about a geographic area that makes up about 2% of the city of Vancouver geographically. Population-wise, it makes up about 3% of the city of Vancouver. But it accounts for over 30%, almost 1/3 of all the violent crime in Vancouver, in that small microcosm area. Shootings in Vancouver, 48% of all shootings in Vancouver happen in the downtown east side. And while crime is falling in other areas around the city, robberies have increased by 36%, and we're seeing street-level assaults of reported ones, and we know there's many that go unreported, of more than one per day. And to give you, sort of a sobering crime statistic, and I know, the media is very familiar with this measurement that we use because sometimes you look at total crime, you look at crime rates, but the CSI, the Crime Severity Index, this is a Stats Canada statistic that is a weighted measure. So what I mean by that is shoplifting is a crime and murder is a crime. But obviously murder is a much more serious crime than shoplifting. So the CSI weighted analysis done by statisticians gives more weight to homicides, robberies, crimes with weapons and violence in your community as opposed to minor, less serious property crimes. The CSI for Vancouver in 2023 was 97. Canada-wide, it was 80.5. And we would expect that in any major center across Canada, the CSI will always be a bit higher because the national one includes all the rural areas, the suburbs, that kind of thing. So it's normal for urban areas to be a little bit higher than the national average. But we also know, looking at the crime reductions in 2024, and we've done, the official numbers won't be out from Stats Can for a little while yet, but for 2024, our planning, research, and audit section has done an analysis, and we know that the CSI from Vancouver is going to drop into the 80s, very low and heading into a very good area. But you know what the CSI is for the downtown east side? We calculated it today. So picture Vancouver in the 80s. Downtown east side is 524. So that gives you a very good statistical weighted analysis to show you the level of violence and the severity of crime that is happening in that 2% geographic area, 3% population area of our city, which is a very troubled part of Vancouver. And you may ask, why are we doing this now? And I will tell you why. Because historically, there has been a bit of a disconnect sometimes between police operations and support from other levels of government, and we feel that there's a strong political will there right now. We've got really good support from City Hall to work on this. We do have good cooperation in certain areas from other levels of government. There's other areas that need to be worked on. There's a strong will from the community, and I think for everybody that's standing here today, if you look yourself in the mirror, when you have visitors or people that come from out of town, everybody knows about the downtown east side. Everybody talks about it, and it's an area that definitely needs some more attention. But the other thing that's different now is that we have done many projects in the past that have had really good results, but this one is going to have long-term sustainability, and we're going to be keeping on this project, and it doesn't have a defined end date. So we're going to keep on it strong. We're going after these folks that are victimizing people in our community, and we're really, really confident that the police side of it, the criminal side, combined with the integrated response teams, which is going to deal with a lot of the, liquor disorder, encampment type issues. It's a great combination that hasn't always worked hand in glove. So I think I will leave it there, and I will now turn it over to Inspector Gary Hare, who will make some comments, and then we will open it up for questions from any of the speakers. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Inspector Gary Hare, and I'm the new officer in charge of District 2, which means I'll be overseeing the operations of all police officers working in and around the downtown east side. I'll also be coordinating the various investigations as well as projects that fall under Task Force Barrage. While I've just arrived in this current role, I've spent a number of years working in and around the downtown east side as a patrol officer. I've also worked dozens of criminal and organized crime investigations as a member of the Uniform Gang Task Force, as well as with the VPD's Organized Crime Section, and as well with the Combined Forces Special Enforcement Unit of BC. I'd really like to underscore the comment Chief Palmer just made about the need to have empathy as well as compassion for the people who reside in the downtown east side. This neighborhood is made up of resilient people who care about their community and deserve to be safe. Many of these people in the downtown east side have lived there for decades without committing violent crimes or ever being arrested. The public safety challenge that exists here were created over many, many years. While we're not going to fix this overnight, I expect the work we're going to be doing will have immediate impact in the neighborhood. I intend to make this place very difficult for drug dealers and criminal networks to do business. We'll achieve that through targeted enforcement that results in drug seizures, arrests, as well as criminal convictions. The goal is to reduce the number of weapons on the street and the number of violent criminals who feel comfortable coming here from other jurisdictions. We'll achieve this through multi-pronged approach, which the chief had hit on a little bit earlier, and they include the proactive patrols and highly visible police officers and their presence to disrupt crime. We'll also be conducting drug investigations and targeting organized crime groups and those who commit violent crimes in this area. We'll continue to work with our community partners. Regardless of what brought people to the downtown east side, everyone should be able to walk down the street without worrying about violence and intimidation. Task Force Barrage will work to arrest those that are bringing danger into this community, whether it's in the form of weapons, drugs, or other criminal activity. I'm pleased that we're in a position to help the residents reclaim their streets. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. We're now going to open it up for Q&A. Just a reminder to please line up at the mic for your questions. State your name, your outlet. One question, one follow-up on topic, and we'll open it up to a second round if possible. We've got Mayor Ken Sim, Chief Palmer, and Inspector Hare available to answer questions.
Hi, it's Penny Dafflos from CTV News. We've heard now about a half an hour worth of comments. I'm looking at a full-page press release, and yet I don't see any costing for this project.
Sure, well, I can start. The estimated cost is going to be about $5 million. But I do want to stress, this is an investment. Okay, so anyone can look at the downtown east side. If you talk to residents, if you talk to business owners, if you talk to tourists, tour or operators, by not making this investment, it is costing us multiples more. And so this is something we want to do. And from a fiscal responsibility, if all we're talking about is from a fiscally responsible perspective, it's probably the best investment we can ever make. And from a people standpoint, it's the best investment we can ever make.
So the follow-up question for yourself, Mayor, and for the chief as well then, will the city be looking to give $5 million more to the VPD, or is this part of the existing budget, and then other services will have to take a back seat in order to fund this project?
Yeah, so our council is, obviously we have to run everything through council, but we're committed to public safety. It is a top priority. And so, once again, we are going to make the investments that we need to make this city a safer place that works for everyone. So, Chief.
Yeah, thank you, Penny. It's going to be additional funding that's added to us as we go through this. I mean, we're obviously going to make some adjustments in the department, as we always do. Just throughout the year, it's normal with different things ebbing and flowing at VPD and what the trends are, but this will be additional funding coming to us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ramina Dea with Global News. I'll just hold it. So this is an additional $5 million. Is the VPD currently in contract negotiations with the city? Is there any bargaining happening?
Yeah. Yeah, we're in collective bargaining right now, but this won't have anything to do with that. Completely separate issues.
How can the public be confident of that?
Because that's the way it's always gone in the history of labor management negotiations and collective bargaining between VPD, our unions, and the city and the police board. It's always been the case that whatever the collective agreement settlements are, that money comes from general government after the determinations are made. It's always been that way. It'll have nothing to do with this project funding.
As far as a follow-up question, we're talking about, Chief, you said a 4 square kilometer area?
I didn't say that. I said that I gave percentages of what it
Okay.
makes up in the city, but yeah.
Okay, but it's a small percentage.
Yes, it is.
Right, a few blocks. So from the public's perspective, people are wondering why, with the budget the police has, can you not get a handle on this small area? What did you announce today? The barrage sounds like a great new name, but what is actually different? And why aren't these things already happening? Right? You've got a gang unit.
Yep.
You've got police that are already out on the front lines. There's CFSEU, there's OCA. Why aren't you already doing this work? Why do you need an additional $5 million?
I'm glad you asked me that. So we are doing this work, and I'm going to give you some really concrete examples of that and then how we're going to improve that. So number one, I'll give you an example of a large project that we worked on in the last couple of years down there, where our organized crime section, who do amazing work and work part and parcel with our downtown east side beat officers, who every day exhibit bravery and commitment to duty, working in one of the toughest neighborhoods in Canada. And I gave you some of the stats and explained to you how that microcosm of an area is extremely troubled and one of the highest crime rates in our country. And the level of violence is unprecedented compared to anywhere else in the city. But examples of some great work we've done down there. We did an investigation with the Wolf Pack, which is connected with the Hells Angels, where we did 3 search warrants on stash houses in Vancouver, got 13 kilograms of fentanyl, 11 kilograms of crystal meth, 8 kilograms of benzodiazepine, 5 kilos of cocaine, firearms, over $320,000 in cash. 4 adult males were charged in that case, with the largest sentences being up to 8 years. And we're going to continue with more work like that. 3 more cases that have been happening part and parcel with this timing. Like, this isn't like we're starting from zero and just starting to do these cases. So I'm going to give you 3 more examples, Ramina. Project Talloner, which is a 2024 project targeting organized crime in the downtown east side, specifically with Zone 43, which is a organized criminal gang from Montreal, from the north side of Montreal, which is notorious across the country. This has resulted in 30 charges being recommended against 15 individuals, gang members, the seizure of more than 24 kilograms of illicit drugs, including a significant amount of fentanyl, prohibited automatic weapons, $163,000 in cash. This targeted this group that was impacting the downtown east side, but they have a national footprint. Those charges are now before the Public Prosecution Service of Canada, and we're awaiting them to lay charges. But as you know, in these large complex files, charges are not laid overnight, so that file is being reviewed by Crown. Another one, which is a long project we did down there called Project Torque, where we seized millions of dollars in drugs, weapons from organized crime. It was a 3-year investigation that continued into 2024 that resulted in 13 criminal charges, $2 million in fentanyl-laced pills, several $1 million in other hard drugs, fentanyl-laced Percocet, and those charges are still before the court pending outcomes, so we'll see how that one goes. And finally, Project Timber, to highlight another high-level project. This was a downtown Eastside drug investigation that resulted in the arrest of 2 people connected with the Drug User Liberation Front, DOLF, who were openly breaking the law by trafficking in illicit substances to residents in the downtown east side. Possession for the purpose of trafficking charges were laid against those 2 people, and that is before the courts right now. So what we're doing now that's different is there's going to be more of an effort put into the longer term investigations. There's going to be higher beat visibility presence down there in the downtown east side. And with the integrated response teams that we mentioned, like you're going to have both. You're going to have more cops in the beat. You're going to have big investigations going on, smaller drug investigations going on, but also the thing that was really missing before was making sure the sidewalks are clean, the structures are gone, the streets are swept, looking at graffiti, all those things that beautify and keep the neighborhood in better shape. And if you look around that area, you'll see we did a lot of this in Chinatown. Have you gone down to Chinatown lately? Looks way better. If you go down to the downtown east side, compare that to what it looked like 6 months ago. It looks way better even right now. And this stuff, a lot of this stuff's been going on behind the scenes, some of the covert stuff and some of the overt stuff, but we're bringing this to light right now because there's a lot of things that are all coming together at this point in time. And we're seeing results down there already, and we're going to keep it sustained for a long period of time. I've been involved in many projects down there over the years. I was the District 2 commander for several years myself when I was an inspector. I know that neighborhood like the back of my hand. And we get good results when we do these projects, but we're going to keep the sustained, coordinated approach on it and get some results.
Thank you.
Chad Pawson, CBC News. How many officers can you say are working in the downtown east side now, and how many will there be once barrage starts going?
So right now we have about 60 officers dedicated to the beat. It's like a normal contingent that would be down there. There's about 200 officers that work in District 2 at large, which is that would include the 60. But they work in the larger patrol area that includes District 2, which is basically the northeast quadrant of the city. So as far as other officers, we have a number of things at our disposal. We have our organized crime section, we have our gang crime unit, we have our metro teams, which are fluid units that can go all over the city. We have three right now, soon to be 4 teams that we can concentrate in any part of the city.
Sorry, I don't hear a number.
Metro teams, that's about another 38 officers.
So 38 extra officers.
But I'm not done. And then also with the $5 million that we're allocating to it, you're going to see a lot of those officers that work in that neighborhood that know it well, plus the organized crime officers as well. You didn't add that to your equation. We got about, 60 officers that work in our organized crime section, something like that. A lot of them will be dedicated to this work. They'll do other stuff in the city too, but also a lot of officers who work regular shifts. They work 4 days on, 4 days off. Some of those officers on their days off will be coming in on overtime. So there's going to be a significant number of officers. I'm not going to give you an exact number, but I'm just kind of giving you the magnitude that it's a lot of resources we're going to bring to bear on this.
I think the public would want to know how many. 60 plus another 60 plus another 38 is what I heard from you. So I'm saying 150
but you're
officers.
actually saying it not in the right way that I said it. So we've got metro teams that we can pull down there at our disposal whenever we want, which is about 38 officers. If something happens in the city at a given moment where we've got a shooting in District 3 or District 4 or District 1, then we'll redeploy them down there when we need them on the day. The organized crime section will have dedicated resources working down there, but they will do other stuff in the city as well. So I'm not going to say how many out of that 60 officers are going to be right in the downtown east side. And of the 60 cops that work down there already walking the beat down there, many of them and other officers from District 2 out of the 200 will be working overtime shifts. So I'm not giving you an exact number. I'm giving you where those officers are going to come from, but it will be definitely a surge capacity that you're going to see in that neighborhood.
Okay, can you take us through a scenario when you have these extra police officers walking through the downtown east side?
Yeah.
Let's say they see an illicit drug interaction going on. What happens? What's going to happen next? What's under a barrage?
Right. So so that's a really good question, because you think about when decriminalization happened, and when that came into effect, basically we didn't see any positive outcomes at all. Like we saw the same amount or more people dying actually, which was remarkable, but in a negative way. We saw open air drug use that was off the charts. We saw huge complaints coming in from the general public because people couldn't go, to the beach. They couldn't go to their businesses. They couldn't walk down the street without people smoking crack or doing meth and interfering with Vancouverites' day-to-day business of getting around the city. And that was felt all over the province, not just in Vancouver. So a lot of those authorities were taken away from the police, that we were not able to act on minor drug interactions or possession that we saw before. Now we're going to be able to use the tools that have come back to us, and we're going after the traffickers. So if you're dealing drugs, I'm not concerned as much about...
You've been listening to Vancouver Mayor Ken Sim and Vancouver Police Chief Adam Palmer. They're announcing Task Force Barrage, meant to crack down on violent offenders and drug traffickers in the downtown east side. Chief Palmer says the force will get $5 million in new funding to put more police and resources on the streets of the 4 square kilometre downtown east side, combined with sanitation, street cleaning and other measures. The mayor says a new approach is needed for a neighbourhood in crisis, and he wants to make it safer for everyone who lives down there, stressing that they do not want to target quote, regular people who are down there, vulnerable people, etc. You can read much more about this on our website, cbc.ca/BC. We'll see you at 4 o'clock. I'm Dan Burrett. Thanks for watching CBC News BC.